Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah. Hey. Good. Good evening. Good. You need your sleep. It's time to go to sleep. My neighbors, they didn't care. And I told them that if they kept doing it, that I would call the police. And then they shut up real quick. I miss you too. I miss you. My neighbors, they were being really loud. Really, really loud. And I had to tell them, you better be quiet or else. And they told me, or else what? And I told them, do you really want to find out? And they blushed. They said, sorry, Noro-kun. Noro-chan. That's the sound of the police. Woo, woo. That's the sound of the police. So today, it might be a little bit of a shorter stream. I'm just gonna read some bedtime stories for you, and then we're gonna sleep together. Does that sound good? It sounds good to me. Yeah, I pulled some up for you. Yeah, if it's really late for you and you need to sleep, ASAP. Yeah, they stopped talking, but that means it took over an hour, and that makes me angry. Just close your eyes and get into bed. You need to tuck yourself in. You have a long day tomorrow. I believe in you. So let's read some stories together. Get nice and cozy. Lay your head on my chest and breathe. Have a good class. This first story is called The Frog and the Ox. An ox came down to a reedy pool to drink. As he splashed heavily into the water, he crushed a young frog into the mud. The old frog missed the little one and asked his brothers and sisters what had become of him. A great big monster, said one of them, stepped on little brother with one of his huge feet. Big was he, said the old frog, puffing herself up. Was he as big as this? Oh, much bigger, they cried. The frog puffed up still more. He could not have been bigger than this, she said. But the little frog all declared that the monster was much, much bigger, and the old frog kept puffing herself out more and more until, all at once, she burst. Belling the cat. The mice once called a meeting to decide on a plan to free themselves of their enemy, the cat. At least, they wished to find some way of knowing when she was coming, so they might have time to run away. Indeed, something had to be done, for they lived in such constant fear of her claws that they hardly dared stir from their dens by night or day. My plans were discussed, but none of them was thought good enough. At least a very young moose got up and said, I have a plan that seems very simple, but I know it will be successful. All we need to do is hang a bell about the cat's neck. When we hear the bell ringing, that's when we know immediately that our enemy is coming. All the mice were much more surprised that they had thought of that such plan before. But in the midst of rejoicing over their good fortune, an old mouse arose and said, I will say that the plan of the young mouse is very good, but let me ask one question. Who will bell the cat? Here's a cute story about love called My Quiet Monster. One rainy day, Susie was in her bedroom, playing with her teddy bear. She couldn't go outside, and so she was a bit bored. What should she do with her day? Perhaps she should snuggle up in a blanket and take a nap. Susie yawned. And her teddy bear tumbled off the bed. As she stretched out to recover him, suddenly Susie heard rustling. A little at first, and then more and more. It was coming from the wardrobe. Susie wasn't frightened. She climbed off the bed and tiptoed to the closet. She was curious about where the sounds were coming from. She opened the wardrobe doors and saw something fluffy and pink amongst her clothes. In an instant, that pink lump turned, and Susie saw a big nose, a huge mouth, and two big eyes. "Who are you?" the girl asked. The pink lump suddenly started growing. It towered over Susie. It opened its mouth, revealing huge teeth and a menacing gaze. And as she trembled a little in her slippers, Susie thought that an enormous roar or growl would shake the very walls of her bedroom. But instead of a lion-like monstrous bellow, there was silence. Not a whisper, not a sound. Susie chuckled to see a big open mouth, and not a squeak came out. She thought the monster was funny. He wasn't frightening at all. She reached out her hands to the pink creature with the big eyes, and she booped its nose. The monster looked shocked and just a little afraid. Susie didn't want the monster to be afraid of her, so she opened her arms and hugged it tightly. "You'll be my pink little monster. I'll call you Fluffle." The monster suddenly smiled. Like most people, he liked hugs. He thought the word Fluffle sounded funny. And his smile grew bigger. "But we will have to work on your camouflage," Susie decided. "We don't want people to know about you. Other people might not understand about pink monsters. You would think a big, pink, fluffy monster would be a hard thing to hide. But Fluffle camouflaged very well. When they went out walking together, Fluffle pretended to be a big, soft, pink woolen hat. Nobody batted an eye, and Susie was kept warm by the big, pink monster. Because Fluffle was so quiet, he was great at quiet games. He knew how to draw so wonderfully. He could do every pink, rose strawberry ice cream and the pink part of lollipops. He also liked it when Susie read to him, and whenever Susie's parents walked into the room, he just pretended to be a great pink, fluffy pink cushion, and they never suspected a thing. One day, however, a huge thunderstorm brewed outside. The lightning flashed, and the trees groaned. The clouds gathered like split ink. Susie suddenly saw that Fluffle was shaking in fear. They hid together under a blanket. Susie cuddled into his side and stroked her new friend's pink, fluffy paw. The quiet monster felt reassured by Susie's kind touch. He stopped trembling. Then suddenly, both of them noticed a yellow spot on his cheek. As Susie watched, more spots appeared: green, blue, purple, orange. Fluffy didn't understand what had happened to him. "Come and have a look at your reflection," said Susie to Fluffle. They ran to the window and looked at Fluff's reflection. And as they did, the sun moved out from behind a cloud, and a beautiful rainbow appeared in the opposite corner of the sky. Susie said with glee, "You look just like a rainbow now." And helping Fluffle not to feel scared by, she gave him a cuddle and started holding his hand. Susie had shown that she loved and cared for him. And being loved and cared for made Fluffle's colors show and pop just like a rainbow. Now there were even more ways to camouflage. He could be a multicolored kite and dance in the wind. And he could pretend to be a rainbow even on sunny days. At the end of each day, they would sit together and watch the sunset. For Susie, it was like being wrapped in a beautiful rainbow blanket. Susie felt so happy to have a best friend. She knew that with Fluffle, she would never feel alone. And Fluffle felt so happy that Susie loved and cared for him. Love and care always bring beautiful colors to our life and to each other. The end. I was reading a bedtime story. One for little babies, just like you. And Kurumi, thank you for the raid. It's time for you to sleep. No, I'm not nervous. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been nervous a day in my life. Don't worry about it, baby. Breathe with me. I think it's time for another story. This one's called When the Button Tree Flowers. Aubrey was putting on his blue cardigan one morning when a button fell off, and now his cardigan wouldn't go up. He was very sad. It was a lovely button. It was made of wood and had a tiny leaf carved around the buttonholes. And he liked his cardigan to go up. What would he do? He tried to push the button back on, but it wouldn't go. It needs to be sewn on, said Mama. But I can't do this today. Aubrey wasn't sure he wanted to sew it back on. He felt something had changed about the cardigan. He felt different about it. Now it had changed so unexpectedly. Perhaps something magical had happened. He wandered into the garden, holding his button. He stood in a patch of sun, listening to the birds. As he stood there, one of the birds fluttered through the air and landed on the earth in front of him. It tugged a worm and flew away. A small hole was left. Aubrey looked at the hole, but felt the little button in his warm hand. He suddenly knew why the button had fallen off. It was part of the natural cycle of life, because he had to plant the button now. He crouched down and made a bigger hole in the soft mud. Then he slipped the button in and covered it with earth. Deep in the earth, the little wooden button settled into his new home. The sun shone above it. The little button couldn't see the sun from its earthy bed, but still it felt the sun's warmth. Every morning, Aubrey came out to the garden with a cup of water. He watered the little button, making sure it was nice and cool. Inside the cozy ground, the little button felt the water trickle in. It quenched its thirst, and it was happy. Aubrey watched the spot where he had planted the button very carefully. At first, nothing grew, but Aubrey believed in magic. He knew that if he believed in that little button, it would grow. One day, very early in the morning, Aubrey saw a small shoot press the earth. It was weak as a thread, but he propped it on a matchstick. Shoots sprouted, leaves popped out. Aubrey thought he might get a new button. But even if we believe in magic, we don't always know how it'll turn out. Instead, a beautiful bud appeared one day. And do you know what popped out? A new cardigan. Aubrey put it on. He had grown his own cardigan from a button. It was a magic button, and Aubrey had somehow guessed it. And furthermore, he had cozy cardigans for all of his friends. Even if something breaks, it can always come back together. And in that newfound love is something that can be shared with others. The end. It's sleepy time. It's time to close your eyes and sleep. I'm not dangerous. I promise I'm very, very safe. It's time for another story. Since you're still awake, so bad. Here's a story about a little chick. It's called The Little Chick is Jealous. Alright. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Mick, with big eyes that reflected the world around him. He loved dogs and cats and chickens and snails. He could help them to achieve great things, like the time his snail won a snail race. Looking at his eyes, you could tell that Mick was a dreamer. One time, Mick dreamt about a red chicken house he had never seen before. He saw gold and yellow straws on the ground. A ray of sunshine colored Father Rooster's feathers down, feathered them brown and blue, shiny green and red. On the straw next to Father Rooster lays a little egg. As Mick watched, the dream came to life before his eyes. He saw that inside the egg was a little baby chick. The little chick was working very hard to break out of the shell with his little beak. The little chick hammered against the shell from the inside. He was exhausted and fed up. When he finally managed to crawl out of the eggshell, he scraped his head on the sharp edges of the shell and it started to bleed. Mother Hen was so upset after laying such a big touch egg, so she needed to rest, which is why Little Chick pulled himself together, sat up to lay by his father rooster instead. Has he hurt his head? Mick wondered, when he saw how exhausted Little Chick was and was so far away from Mother Hen. That wouldn't be nice at all for the Little Chick, as Mick could clearly see. First, little Chick had to have a dreadful struggle to get out of the egg. Then, he suffered all the scratches on his head, and now, after all of that, he couldn't even lie under his mother's snow-white feathers. It was just as well that Father Rooster could take care of him. Luckily, however, with his dreamy eyes, Mick could see that everything would turn out well for the Little Chick. Mother Hen would get better, and then Little Chick would be able to crawl under her snow-white feathers and feel warm and safe with her. It made Mick feel happy and peaceful to know that everything would be all right for the Little Chick. He even made up a song about it. Little Chick, be brave. You will be safe. Mick loves animals big and small. We'll play together, one and all. Sometime later, Mick dreamt again about the red chicken house. He saw the golden yellow straw on the ground and the sun's rays through the roof. Little Chick had now grown bigger and could peck around incredibly fast at the grains on the floor. And he ran around the chicken house on his strong legs. He tried to crow like Father Rooster. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Little Chick cackled on about everything that happened in this world. Sometimes he could be really angry about something, so angry that the anger was almost too big for his little body. Mick saw that this feeling could be really hard for the Little Chick. But then Mick remembered that the Little Chick had such a struggle to crawl out of the egg, but in the end he managed to do so. Mick knew that the Little Chick was brave and resilient. But one day, when Little Chick woke up and looked out into the world, what horror! He saw another tiny Little Chick. It was Pipsqueak in his red chicken house. Under the snow-white feather of Little Chick's mother, and in the glow of his Father Rooster's colored feathers, the Little Chick didn't want that. He didn't want another Little Chick in his house. He begrudged his little brother. Pipsqueak must get out of the way, the Little Chick thought. Out from under the snow-white feathers, out from his Father Rooster's bright feathery embrace. Far away from the bottom of the sea, Little Chick didn't want Pipsqueak anywhere near him. Mick saw all of this happen with his dreaming eyes, and so, in order to help the little chick, he took him on a dream journey. Hand in wing, they went off together. Mick let little chick have a good look into lots of chicken houses. They went to chicken houses with as many as 7 young chickens with them. They also went to chicken houses where there was only 1 chicken. It was very peaceful in there. That one little chicken had everything he wanted, all to himself. Little Chick was so jealous when he saw that. Chicken houses with other pipsqueaks. If a chicken wanted to chatter, he could chatter on his own. If he wanted to squabble about in the straw, there was no little pipsqueak in his way. And if he wanted to peck at a grain, nothing and nobody got in his way. Mick showed Little Chick as many chicken houses with only 1 chicken as what he wanted to see. But after visiting about 100 of them, our Little Chick suddenly thought how quiet it was. The milk was never knocked over, and there was no jolly chattering. The solitary chickens had no little chicks to look after, and to keep off the street, to argue with, to play with, or to make you feel grown up. On his little dream journey with Mick, the little chick suddenly felt really proud of himself. While it was nice being 1 chicken, it was also nice to have a little brother. He realized that he was big enough to understand that the world wasn't his alone. You have to share it with others, brothers, sisters, family, neighbors, and communities. The little chick was so proud of his mother hen because he realized that she had enough snow-white feathers for Little Chick and Pipsqueak together, and Father Rooster had also enough shiny, glowing colored feathers to cuddle the 2 little chicks. Little Chick made a decision. If he felt another rage coming on because he couldn't stand Pipsqueak being around, then he would go and peck on a piece of wood instead of Pipsqueak. He could really attack the piece of wood, and Pipsqueak wouldn't suffer at all. In any case, the little chick never felt very good about himself if he pecked and scratched at Pipsqueak. Mick could clearly see how big and sensible Little Chick had become, and he was delighted by it. The little chick was starting to look more and more like his friendly Father Rooster. Mick was very satisfied about his dream trip, hand in wing with Little Chick. But there was one more chicken house that he wanted to visit. He knew that if there was a chicken who looked exactly like our Little Chick, but he lived with 6 or 7 brothers and sisters in his big red chicken house, if they felt like it, they pecked and scratched at the little chicken who was also like our Little Chick, and that was very sad to see. Mick and the little chick both felt so sorry for the chick. They knew what it felt like when others don't like you, if they just don't want you around. And the little chick realized how important it was to him to make his little brother Pipsqueak feel loved. So when he got back to the red chicken house, little chick spread his wings out to embrace Pipsqueak and make him feel close. And, of his own accord, he started to sing Mick's song, but this time for Pipsqueak. Little chicken, be brave. You will be safe. Mick loves animals big and small. We'll play together, one and all. The end. Oh, thank you. Your kisses, they mean everything to me. Your lips on mine, they mean everything to me. Just close your eyes. Take another deep, deep, deep breath. Let's read another bedtime story. We'll make this the last one before we fall asleep together. This last story is called A Puppy Lost in Paris. Baxter was a big gray hound and gangly. He had a big wolf and a long floppy tongue. It was hard to imagine Baxter ever getting lost. But one day, that's just what happened. He was chasing a particularly curious-looking ball when he squeezed under a bush and suddenly, everything looked different. Baxter tried to squeeze back into the hole, but his big legs and body wouldn't fit into the tiny hole anymore. So he gave a short bark, looked around him, and decided to smell his way back to Oliver. Baxter put his nose to the ground and followed it along the fence. He smelled lavender and roses, fresh dirt, and cut grasses. The fence finished, and he came to a busy road. Across the road was a bakery, and he could smell the warm bread and croissants, the tarts and chocolate cakes. However, Oliver was not in a bakery, so he did not cross the busy road. He turned away and tried another path. As he sniffled along the footpath, he smelled rubbish bins and scooters. He smelled ladies' perfume and sweet oranges. He smelled old books and maps and ancient postage stamps. He smelled the bus brakes as it stopped at the bus stop, and a group of school children got off. Baxter looked very hard, but none of them looked like Oliver. Turning into a gallery, he suddenly smelled a cat. The cat smelled him too. It hissed. Baxter scuttled out of the gallery and followed the path down to the river. When he got to the river, he smelled gulls and winds, fish, and boat gasoline. As he descended closer to the arcades, he smelled and drank. He smelled the dank aroma of water and moss where it had grown on the stones. And then he smelled someone's leftover sandwich. Yum. And ate it he did. But still, no Oliver. Sadly, Baxter loped back towards the park. Maybe he was gonna be lost forever. But as he followed his nose, feeling sad and lonely, he suddenly caught a smell of the most delicious smell in the world. It was a sweetie smell, and someone like chocolate. It also smelled like sweaty football socks. It was Oliver. He had finally found him. They hugged. Baxter licked him all over his face. "P.U.," said Oliver. "Doggy breath, gross." But it was quite possibly the nicest smell in all of Paris. The end. All right, it's time for you to get close to me and cuddle me nice and slowly. All right. It's time to go to sleep. Good night.